Do you know it's been 2 years since Ugreen launched their NASync series? 2 years. They've gone from being a company in the world, at least for most NAS buyers, a company that makes power adapters, cabling and batteries, to arguably one of the bigger names in the world of NAS, usurping players that have been around in this industry for decades. And right now, although they are by no means in the top spot, it has to be argued that brands like Synology and QNAP are now taking heed of this brand. Now, today I've returned to Shenzhen, China, to talk once again to Ugreen. I came here a year ago to talk to them about what they're doing with NAS and what their plans are. And fast forward to now, in March 2026, I want to learn more about where they're at with NAS, where they plan to go with it, and ultimately where they hope to be moving forward. Let's go and find out. As a brand, they're being taken a lot more seriously, and therefore they have to be held to a very high standard compared to where we talked about them 12, 18 months ago. Now, crucially from that, I will say there are still ways to go. There are things this brand need to do, even though in that period, as you can see here from the hardware on the table, they've been busy. Notwithstanding, exclusive solutions are only available in China, like the White series, but they've even got things like their ARM-powered NAS series. They've gone through serious and multiple generations of their 4-bay now with the Pro series 4-bay and an S-series model discussed, although I'm not sure where in the world that's going to be, right the way down to UPS devices right now. They have been expanding in that world of NAS, but I will say a lot of that expanding has been done on the hardware than the software, but more on that later on. But another part of this video is going to be a Q&A that I had with the brand. Now, link below is the full Q&A, the questions that were put to them and the answers that they provided. I'm going to summarize a lot of them in this video using the notes that I made throughout that meeting. I've also got the annotated recording that I've got there that I'm currently working through that will be factored into the article below. But another thing, this visit that I made with their headquarters was done for my part because I wanted to talk more about QA, I wanted to talk about development, I wanted to see just how rigid and stable and reliable their production and their testing is. Now, this video has not been funded by them. They didn't pay for any of my trip. They are not seeing this video for you. This video is simply about me saying what I saw. It is my own words. They have no control over what I am saying. But I will say I've left that visit a lot more confident than I've ever been about their quality assurance, their development and their testing. I got to see hands-on a lot of that work happening. All that said, right now the brand's focus is hugely based on their new IDX 6011 AI NAS series, and it has been a bumpy road on that one. It has gone to crowdfunding. I think at the time of recording, it has exceeded the money generated from 2 years ago on the NASync Kickstarter there that I think raised about 6 million, which when we did the calculations actually worked out in terms of a featured 4-bay NAS solution at around 500 to 600 Nika. That was about 12,500 orders worth of market capital that came out of the NAS market that brands like Synology and QNAP, Asus and TerraMaster would have sold units into. So that left its big mark, but this new crowdfunding for the AI NAS has been exploding. It's still got, I think at the time of recording, I think about 10 to 15 days left on that crowdfunding campaign. I think it's currently sat at 7 or 8 million. There's no point in me saying that here because the time you're watching it, it's going to be larger than that. But a lot of the brand's focus seems to be on that right now, and it's been knocking around for the better part of 2 years. And I have got a follow-up video dedicated very much on that campaign. And again, if you know, that deposit system will be covering that extensively. But this video is about the NASync series. So let's get into the weeds. Let's talk about that tour, because what you're going to see is approximately maybe 2 to 3 minutes of footage. But let me tell you right now, that is barely representative of the 4.5 hours I spent moving from space to space. It started with a trip to their storage facilities to see their hardware stock. It was related to the matter of the AI NAS. That was one of the reasons I was there, but it was ultimately just kind of mind-blowing just to see the sheer stock levels that this brand has, not only across their extensive range of, like batteries and, adapters and stuff like that, but the NAS series, the huge warehouses filled with international and in-country stock. Not just the huge stockpiles of the AI NAS that we've already talked about, but also the stockpiling of just a NASync series, separated across different regions, separated with different, obviously, boundaries for regional crossover of power adapters, but also just livery around the boxes. But moving away from that, we ended up going back to a lot of the QA, the quality assurance and quality QC, quality control areas where we got to see a lot of the work being done. So number one, starting straight away, I saw acoustic testing taking place there. So I saw heat chamber testing. I saw electronic discharge testing going on. I saw salt spray. I saw a salt spray lab, whatever the hell that is. I saw wire dexterity and conductivity testing. I saw the aging lab where systems were put in there for 2 to 3 months. PSU stability, fan efficiency, atmospheric testing. All of these are clearly test facilities that they already had in place to a greater or less degree because of the rest of their product portfolio. Some areas of it were clearly for specific NAS utilization and testing, but other areas there was clear crossover the rest of their solutions. Obviously, they were changing the parameters, changing a lot of the guidelines, but on the one hand, I felt I had mixed feelings about the crossover for a lot of this QA between the NAS series and non-NAS products, but I have to at least acknowledge that at the very least there was experienced personnel and experienced test machinery, or at least high qualification machinery doing these jobs. So on the whole, I walked away from it feeling a lot more confident than I've ever been about their products being tested for quality throughout the course of that journey. Now, beyond that, there was PYGC data composition and data analysis based on all of the results there to test a lot of those systems, but also testing for stability across those systems. So I was left again feeling pretty good. Again, you are seeing, pennies on the dollar's worth of footage compared to everything I saw while going through that facility. And by the way, that extends to research and development as well, because I had to kind of agree to not share a lot of the new stuff. And I'm going to try to sneak some in to the B-roll, so I strongly recommend you check the edges during some of that B-roll. But they do have new products that are currently going through development. I saw 2 NAS systems, technically 3, again I can't talk about it, a lovely new colour palette by the way, it's not green, hence that April Fool's would have been a complete waste of time, but I did see things that make me quite happy. I saw certain network connections being tested. I saw, for example, maybe I'll edit this out later on, it might be too much, I saw U.2 drives stacked up in areas. So that alongside different products in the software space being tested, such as the surveillance software that we talked about before that is going to be universally available across the Ugreen NAS series. These things left me happy. Now, some of this might be China only. Is something they've done before. But it did leave me confident that this is a brand with a plan. That said, when we went into the Q&A that we'll cover in just a moment, I will say some of those plans and some of that long-term vision, it's not quite going to be what everyone's going to want to hear. Now, the Q&A went on for about a couple of hours. I ended up having to leave early from the Ugreen HQ simply because I had to get back to the hotel to make that follow-up video on the IDX system, the video that you guys saw. It actually meant I had to run away, even though they were asking me if I'd like to go for dinner and stuff like that, usual brand stuff. I'm pretty sure I offended a bunch of people when I ran away. Kind of mean. I'm sorry about that if you're watching this, Ugreen, but, video priority, etc. Now, all of the questions I asked them are linked below in the article. I'm going to go hopefully into something a little bit more detail later on regarding specifically the IDX stuff, which we will be covering, basically a full what the hell happened there video coming soon. I'm going to skip over the soft soap stuff. This is all the notes I made during the meeting, but there is an AI transcript. But again, if you care about their journey, a lot of that's going to be linked in the article. Their growth, staff members they've allocated to it. They said a few hundred. I saw about 150, 160 people passing through corridors when I was there, and I saw extra desks. I've got no doubt in the numbers they've assigned there. Again, they rolled out their first NAS in 2021, and the NASync series arrived in 2024. One of the questions I put to them was, of course, to do with shortages and pricing on certain key components. Thank you, AI. And they were talking about how they have been impacted by it. One of the main ways they've been impacted by it is profiling their systems, because some of their systems, like the ARM ones, have got pre-soldered memory, other ones have got SODIMM, and they are looking into, I don't know if that has been actioned yet, some solutions rolling out with different RAM profiles. So for example, all of the NASync series arrive with 8 gig, but maintaining that price profile versus 8 gig of DDR5, they'll have to make a choice, I'm sure, whether they'll have to downgrade the quality of the memory or less memory to maintain that price point. And it sounds like there's going to be different profiles of RAM within some of these within some of these families. I asked them where their biggest challenge was, wondering if they would say software, and we will get onto that later on. And ultimately, they were talking about their biggest problem being synchronization of development between local behavior of the UX within the software, because I think a lot of us, when we first reviewed the NASync series back in 2024, the way the software was utilized, the UX, the user experience, didn't feel great. A lot of the time, placement of icons, placement of services, just general navigation felt counterintuitive at times. But when you use a NAS that is primarily from the Chinese regions, looking at you, white system, you do suddenly see that swap around. And it was them learning how to rearrange how things needed to be presented in a certain way for Western, I hate to use that term, audiences there. So localization of behavior, research needs, and changing the UI and expectations. When I asked them about why they think they've done as well as they have, because I think a lot of us, myself included, would go, well, it's cheap, isn't it? Low price. But let's be realistic, it's obviously going to be more than that. There are plenty of cheap NASs in the market. And they cited the following things. They said it was because of building from feedback and users' needs. Again, blah, blah, corporate. But I was more interested when they actually directly highlighted the lower barrier of entry. So they highlighted themselves that price was one of their main competitive arguments for a lot of buyers there. But moreover, the fact that they went with that utilizing and support of third-party operating systems, which we'll get back to that later on, has proved something of a heel down the road. They argued was one of their strengths early doors, something that other brands have not engaged with on day one when they have rolled out their solutions. And that flexibility is something they've kind of said has been one of their big strengths there. And specific to the AI NAS, when I asked them what was their hardest, the biggest hurdle they encountered there, because let's face it, it's been 18 months since they first revealed that solution. They argued their biggest challenge was to do with how they implemented and provided AI. And that is something I mentioned in my videos as well, that, adding AI is technically very easy. But the problem is how you integrate AI with existing services, what level of access it has by default or by user command or design, and ultimately trying to decide how much of the AI to integrate on off and how much of the AI services are completely removed and levels of access. We talked about this when we compared the Ugreen NAS series with another popular crowdfunding AI NAS solution, and when we were comparing them, we talked about how much of the AI was just doing its job without command and how much of it needed user prompt, how much it needed the user to say, do that. And they're saying they've still not really nailed that completely to please everyone, but they are getting closer. That with added integration within existing services to allow those to take advantage of that Ulia AI is still something they are working back and forth with feedback with users in that Kickstarter group and within existing Ugreen user groups. Now, one subject I talked about a year ago to them, and unfortunately the answer is still not great, is rack mounts. The number of users that are asking Ugreen if they're going to develop or roll out a rack mount solution is growing all the time. It really is. But unfortunately, they've just said they have no plans at this time. They've not heard enough feedback, they've not been told enough, or they don't see enough gain to dilute their development towards both desktop and rack mount, because a lot of their testing, a lot of their QA would have to be completely redesigned for a rack mount solution. So the way they see it is there's just no demand, or at least no heavy enough demand for them to explore that. And talking of demand, now we talk about software, because again, one of our biggest concerns, and I say this in a lot of the videos, mainly so I can play footage like this back in years to come if it's needed. This is a brand that is still very new in the NAS scene, and the purchasing and deployment of their solutions has been so rapid over 2 years that if they are not taking security seriously, then chances are, if an exploit is found, or if it has been found, and a bad actor is just sitting there waiting for the perfect time to execute, I think a lot of users, myself included, want to know they're taking security seriously. Now, when I put that question to them, they said that all products are tested with in-house rigorous testing, but also trusted partners. They have an internal security team and vulnerability reports online, vulnerability reporting requesting online. Now, there was no mention of a bounty program. There was no mention of engagement with things like Pwn to Own. And I know these are big steps up in terms of cost, but also opening the floodgates. I get that there is an element of risk to that. Now, they do say when they do receive any details on security issues, known or recently revealed security issues, they implement and respond to them immediately. Again, I can only repeat what they've said, but I think a lot of us would agree that actions speak louder than words. And I want to see a security advisory page. I want to see them engage with white hat hackers, and I want to see proven examples of them engaging with that. They didn't say that to me. So again, make of that what you will, but I want to see more of that. Again, when it comes to development, a lot of their ARM and Intel-powered systems, I asked, was there any lessons that were learned by exploring ARM-powered systems that was to the benefit of the NASync series? Are these treated like completely separate divisions? And they've made it clear that development within the ARM CPU space, ARM, has allowed them to make NASync applications a great deal more efficient. Users have already reported, and again, I can speak firsthand without parroting their words. Users have seen a lot of the apps and services on the Ugreen side be a great deal more power and certainly RAM efficient. Let's face it, these days, RAM efficiency is key. There's still no concrete examples of an ARM-powered, an AMD-powered system out there. Again, I've seen whispers online, but still nonetheless, it's nice to see them at the very least acknowledging that the ARM stuff is going to benefit non-ARM systems. But when it comes to apps, let's face it, there's gaps. When we talked about Ugreen, again, 2 years on, we can't talk about these guys like they're fringe anymore. We can't say, well, it's not fair to compare them against Synology. It's totally fair now, and we have to compare them to that high standard. The reason I raise it is one of the last questions I asked them was to do with software development. Where is, for example, write once, read many, full volume encryption, I'm reading from my notes on screen, mixed drive RAID, tiering, ZFS support, native Plex application, a native file client application, a better security scanner that isn't just for malware. I want to see when ports are open, when SSH is on, when we don't have auto blocking. A lot of the bells and whistles are there, the framework is there, but there isn't an app that gives you a system security scan. And I asked them, where are these apps? Where are these features? Where is the gap closing on the software front? Now, to their credit, their answer, it was probably the longest answer they gave me in the room. They had the prepared statement there that obviously gone through internally and checked with a lot of their colleagues, but the full answer they gave me was way, way longer. So the prepared statement you can see in the linked article below. So again, read that at your pleasure. It basically said we take feedback, we monitor the apps, so we monitor what people say, and we'll integrate it when demand is there, blah, 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 corpo, etc. But what was interesting is their feature plan, because they do examine, from what I could see, and they showed me a few diagrams, what they are looking into and what can integrate into their existing framework. But they also talked about how they do still have that full support of users utilizing third-party operating systems. But the problem is they've got no concrete data without, breaking people's trust. How many users are using UGOS on their systems compared to those that use third-party operating systems? And the amount of time, development and work that would go into expanding UGOS towards featuring all these extra bells and whistles, They need to know that it is something people are actually going to use and not just buy their box, test it, dump it, go straight to TrueNAS. And I get it. I get that. It is a catch-22. The minute they've opened the door to people using third-party OSs on day one, much like all the brands that never engage with that for this very reason, that you can see why Ugreen will have difficulty spending time and energy and potentially undercutting and making other parts of the system unstable to integrate these features. Now, is that a good enough excuse? No, I don't think it's a good enough excuse in its entirety. Ugreen need to implement a lot of these features because they are no longer the fringe outsider they once were. They highlighted they've still got their feature plan roadmap available online, that you can see their long-term plans to add stuff on. And yes, it's available, and yes, it is updated, but I don't think it's updated anywhere near as it should be. They have pretty much run out an update for the NAS operating system every single month, some cases more than once a month over the period of time that we've seen. But it has to be argued, a lot of the fully featured apps and services, that the numeracy of these have slowed down 2 years on. And I'm worried about complacency. I really am. The AI NAS system, I like it, the IDX. And I can understand that a lot of their focus is on the development of this new, full-fat, guns-blazing system. But I hope they are not going to leave the NASync series and UGOS behind in the sand. The bottom line is that 2 years on, they are a strong NAS brand right now, but they are still untested in the world of security, I would argue, compared to other brands that have got their battle scars. Again, these are things you only gain after extended periods of time in the market, and we can't blame them for being new, but it is something I think new buyers have to bear in mind. I do think their solutions are stable. I do think they are well made. I do think the quality control and the quality assurance of these products speaks for itself. I think they are a brand that wants to be in the NAS market 10 years from now. Will they be a Synology? We'll have to wait and see. But at least now, as they are probably moving into potential refresh territory towards the end of this year, it's going to be very interesting to see post-AI NAS development where NASync goes next. Do I recommend them? Yes. Do I recommend them for hardware more than software? Probably. But that is becoming less so. I just want to see UGOS roll out some of those more fuller fat, more interesting NAS facilities, and maybe lean a little less on the AI stuff, you know? Now, again, the next video we're going to make on Ugreen is going to be about the AI NAS series, because the Kickstarter has got a few weeks left on it, and it has been a wild ride, and I can't wait to share that. But for the rest of you looking at Ugreen NAS as your on-site, off-the-cloud data storage solution, yes, there are better software options in the market, but in terms of hardware and in terms of price point right now, it's not much better. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. There's links below to the Q&A and a few other articles, as well as our 3, 6, and 1 year NASync video series. A link to those below. And if you are interested in getting a Ugreen NAS, help us out on NAS Compares. It's just me and Eddie doing this. And to cover these brands, this is a niche topic, and YouTube ain't getting any easier. So if you want to support what we do, and you found the video helpful, and you were going to buy one of these solutions anyway, use one of the links below to Amazon, to B&H, and to Ugreen's own site. Any promos or discount codes, I'll leave them there as well. And if you use those links, it costs you nothing extra, and we get a bit of commission, which allows us to keep doing what we do. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.